Hey, what's up everybody? How's it going? Leon Kurita-Goudlock here. It's a little past 5 in the morning here in Westchester, New York at the house. This is vlog number 10 and I'm just gonna jump right in. Feeling pretty lucky, had one of those days yesterday where it just kind of makes you, kind of sit back and put everything into perspective. Had to stop by the hospital. Had to kind of leave work a little bit early yesterday and stop by the hospital for a personal matter. It's always interesting. I used to have an internship in a hospital when I was in high school, and there's nothing that'll make you more grateful for your own health than stopping by one of those places and just kind of looking around at all the different people and considering all the different situations that have them in there. So perspective, I think, is always just something that it's really good to keep in terms of your own health and everyone else's situations around you. It's not the topic for today though. So the topic for today is going to be about time frames of perspective. Again, that's time frames of perspective. So if you think about it in relation to the stock market, a long time frame, let's say like a 5-year time frame, 10-year time frame versus a daily chart or a 30-minute chart, a 5-minute chart, a weekly chart. So time frames of perspective in terms of how we look at life and how we look at our goals and being on the road to achieving our goals. So I think that it's interesting when you look at it in relation to, and when you compare it to something like the stock market, right? So day to day, who knows? Who knows and who's an expert? No one, right? So there are pros and people make millions every day doing the day trading and things like that because they know how to work it. They have a strategy in place, a lot like life, right? But then you look at it on the longer time frame and it's historically up. So things are getting better than they used to be. Right? But it takes, you have to really step back and take a long, hard look at it to realize that. And it's not necessarily going like this, it's kind of going like this. As does life, I think, for most of us, it's really important. Especially, so I kind of touched on this yesterday, but it's especially easy in this day and age to fall victim to kind of a skewed perspective about things, especially depending on your environment. I'll give you an example. Because there are a few environments out there that are really, really prone to making us want everything now, especially the younger ones of us. For example, I live in New York, and I'll be the first one to tell you that you will definitely never feel like you're making enough. In New York, in Tokyo, this is just from a financial perspective, if those things are important to you. Because it's such an exciting city, it's such an affluent city, and there are definitely people next to you every day trying just as hard or, making just as much, doing just as much. And a lot of them could be twice your age or half your age, let's say half your age. Twice your age, that also exists, but there could be people a lot younger than you doing a lot more than you, which, if you, like I said in an earlier vlog, if you're not able to keep the blinders on, it's difficult to maintain that perspective and to keep yourself in the right frame of mind in terms of your own time frame for life and for your goals. Another example would be working at a startup. So, you go Silicon Valley, anywhere, Tel Aviv, wherever these hot startup communities are these days, and guaranteed there's people there who are just working on a whole different timeline than you, in a whole different time frame than you. So it's definitely one of those things where if you're in that environment, I work at a very young company as well. There are people really successful there who are really, really young. But it's always really important to keep in mind your own goals and not to feel like you're in a race with anyone else or that you need to compete with anyone else in terms of, I need to be this by this age, I need to make this much by this age, I need to do these things or go to these places and check them off of a list by this age. It's interesting, sorry, I have a little bit of allergies today, I think. It's interesting and it's really motivational that people really want to succeed when they're young. I know that when it was more, back in the day, so when my parents were probably still working, it was more I feel like it was set in stone. Just listening to what they said about the corporate environment back then, it was you go to school until a certain age, everyone graduates, you find a company that suits you, and you work there until you retire, and hopefully your 401k and your pension pans out and can take care of you in old age. But now it's more about, okay, how can I skip a grade? How can I skip this thing to get to the next thing? And especially with the proliferation of social media, I also find that it's about how many boxes can I tick off in life by a certain age. So, young kids travel a lot more. The world is a lot smaller now in terms of the fact that it's much more global. It's easier to get places, it's easier to connect to people in other places. And I think it's a lot more normal to do things like studying abroad or working in another country. And, so goes the story. And along with that, I think come a lot of expectations, right? So the younger generation, they are expected to have certain qualities and do certain things, and I think that they expect things of themselves right now. One of the things that I say to a lot of young kids is that you don't need to feel like by the time you're 15, you need to have a startup that's making millions of dollars and has a bunch of investors, and you have articles on TechCrunch and things like that. There are definitely a lot of people out there doing it, but just because you may or may not be one of them, even if you are one of them, that doesn't mean success, and that doesn't mean failure. And it's a very personal thing. So going back to this idea of time frames of perspective, if that was never your goal, then you don't need to worry about it because it wasn't your goal. So, needlessly putting something in your head that is on somebody else's timeline or on somebody else's short-term time frame of perspective is not important. But for some reason we do that. I think it's just because we're human and we have a tendency to like to look around. I think that there's nothing wrong, of course, with pushing the limits and wanting more. I'm definitely a person who's prone to trying to push my own limits and wanting more for myself and my life, just in terms of whether that be experiences or whether that be, whatever it happens to be. I think just the concept of wanting to get to that next level is something that a lot of us do have, but that doesn't mean going about it carelessly. So I talked a lot about patience in the previous vlogs, respecting the process, and not just focusing on the goal, but focusing on implementing routines that you can do every day until you get to the goal that will help you stick with it and achieve what you're going for. Without any of that, I do think that it's easy to just be jaded and stubborn and say, just say things that, or think things that have no basis in any time frame of perspective or any reality. It's really easy for to tell who has a plan and who doesn't. You talk to people about their goals, and sometimes there are these kind of stubborn, more worldly, individuals, and it seems like they love things and they want things, or they want experiences. You ask them, so what's your dream? I want this, I want that, I want to go here, I want to do that. But how are you going to do that, though? And there may be a lack of an answer at that point if the conversation goes that way. It's because of a lack of consideration for the process and a lack of consideration for these time frames of perspective that I'm talking about. You ask, by when? When do you want that? Now. Everyone wants everything now. I definitely have a habit of being at work and saying, we need it yesterday, because that is so much the case. It can never be done fast enough. Nothing is ever fast enough. And that's just going to keep going, and it's just going to keep being that way until perpetuity, right? Because that's just the way of things now. And once things start speeding up, no one wants them to slow down. But again, inside of all that chaos, you definitely, to be a part of that chaos in the right way, you really need to maintain this idea of time frames of perspective, because it's also what's going to keep you motivated, right? If your time frame is messed up in your mind and you wake up every day thinking that you should already be there, I should already have, $1 million in the bank, or I should have already been to 20 countries. I should already have, 3 successful startups and a restaurant, and I should already have a family. I should already have helped 1 million people. I should have already, been to this place and done this thing. If you plan backwards, first of all, it'll help you stay in the right time frame, planning backwards. So just think of it as kind of like a backwards triangle. I don't know if I did that right, but a backwards triangle. Start from the goal and work your way back in your mind with the process, so outlining in your mind how you're going to get there. That will definitely help you reframe and put yourself in the right context in your mind, the right time frame of perspective. Without that, it's really, really easy to not reach your goals, actually, because if you're looking at it in the wrong time frame, it's going to frustrate you. You might quit, you might give up, you might look sideways at the person next to you and realize and feel like, oh, you've already lost if you're a competitive person, when that might not be the case at all. I said in another vlog that everyone has a different bell curve for their life, and that's so very true. It's pretty much the same thing as this time frame of perspective idea I'm talking about right now. So what I just wanted to leave you guys with today, especially if any of you out there do work at a startup, you do live in a competitive environment like New York, Tokyo, London, all of these different places where everyone is really getting up every day and going at it, and a lot of us are relatively young. Maintain, composure and maintain the right frame of mind around your own personal time frame of perspective, and make sure that you know how to shift gears at the right time in your life to adjust on that time frame, and kind of like give yourself a realistic gauge when you look back kind of like from afar and try to assess where you are in life at whatever point that you're at right now. It will definitely help you stay more positive. It will help you stay more motivated. It'll help you give a lot of better advice, I think, to others if any of you are in positions where you have to give advice to people on a daily basis. And it will definitely help you set goals, both long and short, for yourself as you go through life. Without the right time frame in your mind, none of that really melds together in the right way, and it might be very preventative in terms of it might prevent you from actually reaching your goals in the future without this skill. So if you want to talk more about it, if you want to understand what these time frames might look like for you, depending on your current situation, depending on the industry that you work in, feel free to shoot me a DM. We can go over it. I can talk more about it. I have a lot of experience kind of talking to people about these things in different industries. So I'd be glad to expound on the conversation. But just remember that as you go into work today, time frame of perspective and time frame, being able to step back and analyze where you're really at within a larger context are very key on a day-to-day basis. So keep that in mind. Let's all try to have a good day today, okay? I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Bye.